welcome to the Nirvana Strength Practitioners Panel podcast, where we explore the idea of human performance optimization. I'm Ian McLeod, the co-founder of Nirvana Strength, and on today's episode, we'll be joined by Richard Ayling. He's an international coach, facilitator, and speaker based in Bali, but does travel around to China and anywhere else? Europe as well, and so maybe coming to a facility near you soon. Maybe. He is driven to help people find balance, stillness, and clarity by developing the same. I always mispronounce this word. Subtle mind-body connection that helped him overcome chronic illness and regain direction and momentum in his life. So that will definitely be a point of discussion. He trained personally with Wim Hof to become one of the first international Wim Hof method instructors, and under Realign runs his own embodiment facilitation programs featuring yoga, qigong, non-linear movement, and meditation. He is fascinated by human growth and potential, and I'm hoping that all of you listening are as well. And his coaching helps people in transition move confidently toward their life's purpose. Cool. Well, welcome, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And before we start, always got to do a quick sponsor thing. We're recording at the Haven Suites Bali Bara. They are an amazing hotel in Canggu, and literally like right on the beach. And they hope to make everything about your holiday in Bali epic. So, anyways, now that's done, we'll go ahead and get started. So, Rich, thank you for coming and joining me on this. Ideally mini exploration of possible human potential and growth. So to expand on your bio, can you kind of give an idea of like what is your main focus as of like today, of like now present moment focus?
There's been kind of layers to this over the years as my practice and coaching has developed, but what I'm mostly interested in now is helping people figure out the why behind their choices, so that when we are trying to grow and develop and get stronger in the body or the mind or whatever it is that we're trying to do, we're understanding why we're doing it. Because otherwise, if the motivation isn't clear, if it's unhealthy and we're not aware of that, then that's how things kind of fall apart, and we're not able to get consistent with practices, and we're not able to get the results that we want. And that's come a lot from my own experience of, making mistakes and doing things out of, perhaps fulfilling the wrong needs and whatnot. And it's just helped me to have an awareness of like, okay, this is who I am, where I'm going. And that's kind of really helped me. And it's helped a lot of the people that I'm working with as well, just to be kind of clear behind the why, because there's so much in the growth and sort of self-development industry, whether we're talking about the body or the mind. And it just seems to be kind of much of a trend. And so what I'm trying to do is go, whoa. Before we dive into the next book, to the next modality, it's like, why are you doing this in the first place? And getting you set on a kind of a clearer path from the beginning. Does that make sense?
No, for sure. Most Bali is obviously its own kind of unique place in that it definitely attracts a lot of people who are very growth mindset and kind of getting away from the whole rat race of Western culture and big city life. But I do find that, people generally tend to just do things for very superficial reasons, and it might be something that they actually might want to do, but they don't actually really know their true intentions as to why they're doing it, or what exactly is the purpose of completing any particular goal, or even missing the point entirely, and they end up accomplishing a goal and then just feeling completely empty by the time they get there. So I think definitely like helping people figure out like how do they progress in their journey to benefit the most from the actual journey, as opposed to just having some arbitrary end goal.
Right. Nutrition is not my specialty, although it's something that I played around with a lot in trying to work with my autoimmune disease. And so I'll speak from that experience and just say that I tried every kind of diet under the sun. And when I meet people that are kind of like, I'm doing the ketogenic diet, and it's like, okay, why is that? To optimize my gut biome. It's like, is that what you need to do right now? And
right.
It's one example, and it's not having to go at the ketogenic diet. It's a beautiful thing if people know why they're doing it, and if they're doing it properly, right? If they're clear about their goals and whether it's what their body needs right now, you know. And so it's just cultivating more of an awareness based on, okay, where am I in life? What's missing? Where do I think I want to go? And answering these kind of basic questions, which takes a bit more time, a bit more reflection, and it isn't the kind of the quick fix. You know, it's going to take a bit of time. But ultimately, I think that's what we all want to do, is have a clearer sense of identity, purpose, you know. And so asking the bigger questions at the beginning. Not that I did that. I'm just trying to kind of help people not do what I did, basically.
I think, I mean, for most of us, I mean, the idea should be is to learn from the mistakes of those that we're trying to mimic or we're trying to learn from. And I do find that it's with regards to like quick fixes, right? I mean, it's a very prominent thing in our life nowadays, right? People are just like, they want to pop a pill and feel better, or they want to just get cosmetic surgery and just fix something that they, you know, are trying to work on, or but it's not even just individuals that are actually looking for quick fixes, but also the system is kind of built to quick fix things, right? So like how fast, like a doctor, if they saw like you injured your knee, and how quickly they would be to just be like, all right, you got to get surgery to fix it, versus maybe going a more holistic route. And though it might take longer, it might benefit you in the long run. So how is your, like where you are now, like how have you progressed over the last like 5 years, 10 years from maybe when you first kind of started?
Yeah, it's probably worth, you know, going back to where the story began, which was 2006, when I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called ulcerative colitis, which affected my colon. It was pretty nasty, to say the least, and the doctor said I'd have it for the rest of my life. And it was, you know, come about because I was stuck in a job I didn't like, you know, the relationship wasn't working out, you know, not going anywhere and not taking care of myself as a result, and just kind of getting to that sort of depressed sort of state. And being diagnosed with that was the biggest wake-up call I could possibly have had. It was, I'm grateful for it now, because it was like I had a choice, and I said no, you know, to accepting that this is how my life's going to be defined, and all this medication and whatnot. So that began this sort of journey of exploration of like how to reduce stress, you know, how to get more into the body, like self-development, just to kind of figure out what else is there, and go beyond the kind of life that I'd sort of trapped myself in, basically. Nutrition was a big part of that. I'm experimenting with it, and over years I was able to kind of come off the medication, which was great. And I kind of moved to Germany, and I sort of became a freelancer, and I was teaching English and communication. And through that sort of developed this connection with people, and helping them kind of, when they're trying to speak another language, like get talking about, well, what is it that they're passionate about? Because we can talk at ABC all day and grammar, but learning to sort of understand what is it that drives people, what is it that their passion is, and asking the right questions, and having 10 years of that sort of training to help people then kind of learn to express themselves, say, well, this is what I love doing, and seeing them really come alive. And so alongside this sort of growth journey of my own, I was then kind of already working with other people, and just something was kind of coming together from that. Of course, it's worth mentioning the Wim Hof method. When I discovered that's about 3.5 years ago. That changed everything. That's what cleared out, I believe, the residual inflammation in my system. And to this day, I have no symptoms of this illness whatsoever. So that then gave me a massive freedom and a belief that, well, let's become an instructor of this and see where that journey takes me.
No, that's very interesting. I mean, through your own practice and through your coachings and stuff, is there any similarities with regards to people's like reaching a point in their life where like they're faced with something very real, you know? Like I know generally with fitness, you know, ends up being like a timing thing with a lot of people. Like they won't deal with their health until they get to a point where they just like they're absolutely forced to, or they've, you know, ideally they don't get something so serious that they're like, you know, like you're gonna die next week, but it is serious enough to force them to really focus on the things that really matter. Would you say that most of your clients that you deal with are dealing with something on a very serious level before they get to a point where they accept that they actually need to actually deal with it?
I mean, I think that's a huge thing. I think that's really common. You're right to point that out. It's not always an extreme sort of disease or something. A lot of people hear the story, or my story, and say, wow, like, that's pretty cool. And they want to kind of find out that journey, because I think ultimately we all want resolution and recovery. Not too many people that I know have come to me saying, look, I'm really sick and I want to kind of shift this, because I can't guarantee that. It's a, you know, I can't always help people. We have to help ourselves. So I think the main trend of people that are kind of, that I'm ending up working with, that I'm seeing a lot around in this field, especially in Bali, are people that are like, you see the idea of the two mountains, like this one of kind of setting up for, you know, here I am in the world and I've got money and I've got my standing and I've got something, and we get to the top of that mountain, almost like the mountain of significance, and like, here I am, cool, and then after a while it's like something's missing, you know, something's not quite there, and then the search for meaning kind of kicks in. And I think this generation especially, that's starting to happen a lot earlier, because people, they have more money, they have more abundance and time and options, and so the question is, if like, well, what else is there out there? You know, like I've trained my body, you know, or maybe, and what's beyond that? Because this feels really good, but it's one piece of the puzzle. Or people that haven't taken care of their body at all, and they're just sort of sat in books and like, well, this isn't satisfying. And so that's kind of the big question. Like, what am I here to do? You know?
I think, yes, like with regards to like the progression of the human race, and I think with how easy life is now generally compared to, you know, 2 generations ago, where we just seem to have like a massive overabundance of time and trying to figure out, like, we're filling it up with all these self-help books, and we're obviously eating a lot of different things that we're not usually, we didn't really consume as much in the past, but I think almost being paralyzed by a massive selection of options, like pathways to go, right? So if someone were to, you know, maybe they're at a point where they're trying to deal with like some kind of illness, or they're trying to deal with something health-wise in their, or even lifestyle-wise, right? I mean, what should they essentially be, what do you think they should be looking for? How do they kind of sift through, you know, the whole industry of like lifestyle coaches or life coaches or whatnot, and how do they decide like who's like legit and who's like good? And I mean, is there any pointers that you would give to someone like that?
Great question. I mean, you know, looking for someone that you resonate with, that shares your values, and that you kind of, you have some kind of understanding with, like, and people that sort of preach and sell kind of quick fixes and sell you know, ultimate happiness. I think that's probably something to run away from. It's an understanding of the self, and like, I got sick for a reason, and it's not, maybe it's not my fault, you know, but that there's something deeper going on, and someone that's willing to look at like their responsibility in that, meaning, you know, I didn't take care of my food intake, and that was because I was kind of pretty sad because of XYZ thing. Nowadays we've got all this time, and the overwhelm that you're talking about is huge. It's a problem. It's becoming this industry of, where do I even begin? And I do it myself sometimes. I have a question, and you can Google, and then, okay, quick, I could buy that book. You know, we have a ton of books in our Kindles that aren't even read, but like the idea of buying into, you know, like sort of security and health is one part of it. But I can only recommend like taking a deeper dive with someone or something that you really resonate with, and taking a lot of time to ask the right questions, and, you know, just to feel into it. That sounds very loose and vague, but like, you know, I've been swirling around Nirvana Strength for a while, and I thought you guys are really cool, and like, I haven't quite taken the deep dive because I wasn't ready to invest the own time in my body, you know, but it was like, when I'm ready to do that, these guys feel really good to me. You know, they're taking care. It's like, there's other forms of fitness out there that are very intense, and that'll speak to a different kind of person, you know? So like, I'm not into, I think we know what we're talking about, and just like as many reps as possible. Like, you know, there's a value to kind of the community and the other forms like that speak to, but for me it's like some of the deeper dive and the longer term kind of plan, you know. So understanding that's who I am, like, that's how I found you guys.
Well, I think too, I mean, when people see professionals in, like, well, let's say in performance realm with sports and whatnot, or even seeing like photography and such, like people tend to only see the final product uh, of the game or the final product of the photos or whatnot, and they kind of assume certain things with regards to like how the preparation went for playing that game or that competition. So, I think with regards to fitness, like people have a very false perception of like what professional athletes actually do to prepare for their sport and their activity. And so you tend to find that with regards to like the kind of fatigue seeking nature of what a lot of fitness industry has become, where you just go out there and you're training every day and you're basically just like destroying your body because you think that that's what professional athletes do. I think it's, yeah.
One example of that, I mean, I remember Emmanuel Adebayor is like a footballer, a former professional footballer. He used to play for my team back in England, and he was going on about this insanity workouts.
Yeah.
And, I got onto them a few years back, and to be fair, like, they got me super fit and they got me in the right shape, and I was also taking care of my nutrition. But I also got injured a couple of times, and it's that idea of like what I want isn't what necessarily I need. Right? And so kind of it makes me feel good, it gets me moving and stuff, but am I doing the right thing for my body? Because, have I got anyone around me to say, okay, that's not good for you right now, and you need to take a day off, or you need to not do that, whatever. Whereas going to a place that really takes the time, this sounds almost like a sort of subtle plug for you guys, but, being taken care of and being taken to your own like safe limit, and understanding why you're doing a lot of this stuff. It's not as sexy in terms of sweats and whatnot, like in Instagram shots perhaps.
Yeah.
But it's that, again, that deeper dive and that like longer term benefits, which you see that a lot of the guys at your gym. They're super balanced, like physically, like and mentally, from what I can see, and it takes longer, but it's worth it.
I think that is something for sure, like with regards to like when you see a doctor or you see some specialist, right, is even in the initial consult, like do they actually take the time to properly like assess? I think that's a good place to start for most people, like are they actually speaking with you for more than 10 minutes before they start diagnosing like whatever your problems are. I do find that but there is a difficulty with regards to like if you're in the wrong environment. So like if you were like, let's say in a big city and you went to like 10 different doctors and they all basically went through the process the same exact way and spent less than 10 minutes with you, and that was you just experienced that your entire life, you would just think that that's normal, and you would not even have any idea that someone like a coach like yourself who actually like took the time to better know their clients even existed. So I think that's kind of a difficult place for some people to be in, because you just don't, how do you discover something that you don't even know even exists?
Like, not to kind of shit on Western medicine, like in terms of treating emergencies, it's profound and it's great. And at least I'll speak for England, it's like super underfunded, and there's no poorly intentioned doctor out there, but like the pressure that they've got, and it's like, it's clearly under stress and not working, and that's the norm. And you just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna sit here and wait, and I'm diagnosed with this. Oh, okay, cool, I've got this thing now, and like for some reason I was blessed enough to question that and go, do I have to have this thing, and is there another way to kind of look at this? And then if we're open and willing to, we're coming away from fitness a bit, I know, but like, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, like the sort of Indian sort of science of life that's been around for thousands of years. I'm not super excited about the idea of drinking sort of ghee and butter for like 10 days in order to have a detox. But like if you look at like the sort of holistic approach to the way, I'll just pick this example, like this is the food that you could possibly eat based on your body type at this time of year, this time of day, and the temperature, and it's like, it's a bit more complex, but it totally makes sense.
I think there's definitely a lot of things from Eastern philosophy that can be incorporated. I think there's even a lot of things that have already been kind of incorporated in Western philosophy. It's just there's a lot of linguistical semantics with how people talk about things. But there's a lot of things that are that are happening in Eastern philosophy that a lot of Westerners generally would just completely disregard and just say it's a lot of like hocus pocus because they just don't have much experience with it. But I mean, I figure if it's like if there's a civilization that's been doing something for I don't know 10,000 years, and everybody seems, you know, let's say not everybody, but let's say there's like a large percentage of the population that's living to a long ripe age and still relatively healthy, like they must be doing something right. Like there's the proof is kind of in the pudding, as the expression kind of goes. But yeah, so I'm definitely interested in exploring Eastern philosophy a lot more in my practice.
Yeah, I mean, my journey into yoga and understanding that what, you know, this practice, this fiery morning practice, it's going to be like moving energy up and down my body, and, you know, deep in breaths and strong kind of movements of energy and bandhas, you know, this kind of thing. Is that what this thin frame of a body actually needs that isn't naturally tended towards groundedness? Probably not. You know, so as boring as it seems, actually what my body type needs and what my sort of like brain and it's all over the place, you know, like what that needs is a regular practice that is like about forward folding and slowing down and grounding, and it's like we've forgotten, I think, what stability looks like, you know, this idea of like, oh, there's nothing to worry about, there's nothing stressing me out, and it's like, oh, this word normal, it's like, does that even have a meaning anymore? You know, and it's like, okay, how do you feel? Okay, oh wow, like, and we're so numb, it feels like, that, you know, again, through kind of quick fixes and just what the media is doing and what social media is doing, that we're so kind of like this thing, that thing, and just looking for dopamine hits all the time. But it's like, well, is that how we're designed to function? Absolutely not. And so the person that is kind of that heavier sort of type, that is not so awake and alert in the morning, that fire yoga might be better for them. But the point I'm making is that it's no one fit solution. One size does not fit all, it can't. And so we need to take the time and fundamentally the responsibility as an individual to go, okay, let's have a look at my life and my practices. Is that serving me? It's fun, but how much sleep am I getting? Like, what's my diet like? You know, like, what are my stress levels like? And if that's not in alignment and it's not helping me get where I want to go, if I'm not even clear about where I want to go, perhaps like I'm the one that has to do something about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's, but I think this also even, I mean, for, you know, individuals that might be listening or looking for a life coach, you know, like, I mean, this is where like proper taking the like having your coach actually take the time to help you through the entire process is super important. How has your, you know, journey been with regards to like incorporating both Western and Eastern philosophy? I mean, everybody's gonna have their own interesting mix. Have you found something that you feel like works really well for you, or are you still kind of progressing in your understanding of both thought processes?
I mean, from what I can see, and by far am I not like claiming to be an expert, it's just from what I can see as a human living in this world of, you know, both of these sort of Western and Eastern philosophies kind of existing, is that Western medicine and neuroscience especially seems to be backing up a lot of what Eastern philosophy has been talking about for a long time. And so, like, I'm no longer, and this is a massive shift, I'm no longer in need of science saying that this, you know, this is okay. There's an open-mindedness to going, how does this make me feel? You know, like, science is pretty young, you know, and like sort of Vedic philosophy is thousands of years old, and it's like, how can I integrate both of these? Well, yeah, I can just see how I feel. There's a lot of people peddling all kinds of esoteric stuff out there. There's this, you know, you can almost be anything without qualification if you live in that realm, and that's not to sort of say that there are people out there that are doing things out of integrity, but it's a big world where we can explore and we can play with breath work and sound and all this stuff. And to me, it's like coming back to the idea of responsibility again, and just like, all right, what do I need right now, and how can I subtly push my own boundaries? And there are so many rules in the West around medicine and you know, what you can do and you can't do. And I'm really straying more to kind of like repeat, but responsibility for myself, and just trying to stick to one thing at a time.
Yeah.
You know, because there's so much out there, and we can also kind of hop and jump between in that that search for kind of novelty, as if that's the thing to buy into. And there's a lot of Eastern stuff coming across, and it's like, warning, you can get lost in like a loop, like a washing machine of all of this kind of work. And it's like, let the practice that you're doing have an effect on you for a long enough time, and then see what Western medicine says to it. You know, that's kind of my approach.
I think so. It definitely. I mean, we live in a life where we're always dealing with a lot of stimulants, and I think that helps us. It makes it very difficult for us to actually listen to our bodies and to even better identify like where the actual problem is. But then also on the other end, like some people, I mean, it's quite nice here in Bali that there are so many options that are not solely based on Western philosophy, but there's a lot of alternative health options here. But I do find that sometimes people will just go full in on everything and just take part in everything they possibly can within like, you know, a 5-day period. And then at the end of it, they don't even actually know like which thing like really helped them, because they've just kind of maybe overdone it on the
right. And I'm quick to point out that neither of us are sitting here in a place of judgment, right? Like we've both kind of had our own journeys through this, and I know that I did that briefly. I went and lived up in Ubud, where it was just a big opportunity to dive in, and because I wanted to feel. And now I look back and it's like, what needs weren't being met? Well, there was definitely a need for connection, and that need for growth as well, but it wasn't serving me to kind of throw myself in. And, you know, especially with the topic of breath work, you know, I'd sort of teach the Wim Hof method, and then a guy would come and be like, yeah, I did like transformational breath work yesterday, and tomorrow I'm going to do blah blah breath work. It's like, brother, man, take it easy. You know, like don't, your nervous system is nervous for a reason. You know, just give it time, whatever practice you're doing, to have its effects. But again, the counter argument is like, you learn from experience, right? Yeah,
and I think sometimes people kind of underestimate the power of breath work as well. I mean, I think it's a massively powerful thing, and you know, even that, to be jumping from like one technique to the next technique, and like just doing all these different techniques, and whether it be like you're massively like, you know, working on performance breath work, or you're just working purely on, I don't know, some kind of breath work that's focused on hyperventilation, or if you got another breath work that's focused on who knows, man. But I mean, there's you probably know a lot more variations of the stuff than I do. Has there been other breath practices that you've tried that for one reason or another either like didn't work for you, or you felt like could be good but only in certain situations? Or
be really careful, you know, because there's some great practices out there, and then they have very specific outcomes. I think for me, the Wim Hof method breathing technique is the one for me. It brings balance to me, and there's a few other techniques out there which are more about a peak experience, and they can be very cathartic and have given people beautiful, you know, kind of results. I wouldn't consider them a daily practice that cultivates groundedness and stability. You know, the go-to for me is pranayama. You know, it's like the science of breath, basically. You know, this kind of what we do after asana in yoga and before meditation. When you consider that for thousands of years there's so many subtleties to and rules to what kind of breath does what modalities there are to whether we're trying to calm ourselves, we're trying to have cathartic states, whatever we're trying to do, that you know, the yogi, the master, would be like, you're not allowed this technique until you can breathe in for 30 seconds, hold your breath for a minute, breathe out for 30 seconds, hold your breath out for a minute, or whatever. You know, it's like there are layers to this, so that your mind can actually handle what you're about to do to it.
Yeah.
You know, so like, it's a long way of saying that kind of pranayama is a lot more of a subtle technique, but it's this idea of, do you want like a shower of experience? It's like, wow, that will peter off after a while, or do you want this kind of daily subtle drip of, you know, kind of goodness and the longer journey?
Is there in the, let's say, breathwork industry or realm, is there like any beef between different practices? Like, are they, I don't know, like, is there like someone who does like I don't know, like, are there people that like just absolutely despise like the Wim Hof method just because of, I don't know, they just it goes against like their breathing technique beliefs, or
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, the egos are everywhere, and I had one for a brief period. I'll admit that. I think
because I do see it sometimes like between like yoga practices. I mean,
Sure.
and I would say even in sports as well, like fitness, like you definitely see like some people just being like totally saying like, oh, that's not good, or like we're better than them.
I think
I don't know.
I'm getting a little bit of a mouth, so maybe I'm the problem. But the message I've got to point out is like I'm not a breath worker. I advocate the Wim Hof method because it's actually backed up by science, and when it's taught in a kind of a subtle, deep way, and it's not practiced intensely, amazing things can happen. You've got hundreds of thousands of people out there, on the website, on the Facebook group, talking about what it's been able to do, and science, it's like the extra little thing that goes, wow, we've got something to show here as well.
Right.
That's why it's kind of got so popular. I think when I first came to Ubud, when I first came to Bali, like breath work was already a thing. I'd sort of come from Germany, and Wim Hof was starting to kind of pick up, and not many people knew about it, and suddenly there's this whole community, and I was welcomed, and it was really, really cool, and everyone was like, oh, I'll come to yours, you come to mine, and whatnot. So I think that still exists. I just think because it's become, perhaps due to Wim, the real world, like a household thing, like breathwork is the new mindfulness, it's the new meditation, right? Just like cold exposure is a thing, and it's like a lot of people are out there now teaching it, and I question whether they're aware of they're experienced enough to know what it can do, and are they also able to help other people when perhaps something traumatic happens, like this golden rule, my yoga teacher would say, would be do this practice 100 times before you dream of then passing it on to someone else. And I guess I would question whether that's happening enough in our enthusiasm to share something that feels great.
I think that kind of fits in with have you ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? It's in psychology with regards to like competency levels, and relative to like your confidence levels. So like probably butchering a little bit, but the idea is that like, let's say if someone knew nothing about fitness and they got their first personal training certification, and they just basically got the foundational information that they need, but as soon as they get that, their confidence levels increase significantly, right? And they feel like they know a lot of information, when really in the grand scheme of things, they probably don't really know a whole lot. And then as they progress in their education and become more aware of high-level practitioners and maybe Olympic-level coaches, they realize more and more that as you learn more, you realize that you actually don't know as much as you thought. So then the confidence level starts to decrease, and it kind of matches your actual competency levels. And then I guess the back end of it is that it ends up going like the other way to an extent. Like you have like super high-level practitioners who are always their entire environment and culture is like talking with other high-level practitioners. So then eventually they start kind of thinking that everybody has a very basic level of understanding of their topic, but really when most people probably don't have any basic knowledge. But yeah, I do find that for some of the industry that we're kind of in with regards to like health and wellness, that there's a lot of it that there is no real like barrier to entry, and like especially with let's say like CrossFit, you can get a level 1 certification on a weekend, right? In Bali, there's like hundreds, if not thousands, of yoga certs happening every month.
Right.
And I think it's not that, it's good that everybody's wanting to increase their level of knowledge and awareness of any particular topic, but having some misconceptions as to like, are they actually fully prepared to instruct what they've actually learned? I think a lot of personal training certs is you complete the certification by taking a multiple choice test, but it's hard to. Sometimes I compare it with like a surgeon, right? Like if a surgeon only studied theory and they just did everything in a book and they took a multiple choice test, like they're not prepared to actually practically apply the information that they just learned. They actually have like practical tests, and they practice classes or they're working with colleagues or whatnot. But I think the practical component is missing a lot in a lot of the education that we're kind of doing nowadays. Like it's just consumption, and there's no like actual application or testing or experimenting. Even self-exploration is very lacking, I think.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I'm guilty of that a little bit as well.
I think we all are, for sure. Like, I mean, I when I first heard of the Dunning-Kruger thing, and I thought about when I first got my personal training certification, I was like 22, and I was like, oh my God, that was me. Like, I thought I played American football for like 12 years, and I was like, oh, I've exercised a lot. Like, I've trained a lot, like I've had some really good coaches. Like, yeah, of course, my knowledge base is really high. But it was high like if I compared to someone who doesn't know anything, of course it's quite high, but yeah, as I like got to meet like other high level practitioners, and I met Olympic level coaches, I'm like, wow, I like literally probably know nothing compared to these guys. Like,
I think, and it's to jump in here and also go back and answer a little bit better, I hope, the question you said earlier to like someone who's looking out for a coach or where to go in here. It's like the person that let's stick with the person, right? The person you're potentially going to work with under any context. It's like they can only take you as far as they've been themselves in their journey, whether that's fitness, whether that's kind of like life coaching and their own experiences of overcoming limiting beliefs and been through something. And you need to be able to have that sense that they've done that. And I'm not saying you can't be a life coach at 22, but there's like I wonder the depth of what they're able to kind of offer, being that they haven't actually done much yet. So that's not to say that there aren't great life coaches out there that haven't had a bunch of experiences, but it's like you need to be able to tap into that and say, well, what's this person's story, and how far have they actually gone, and how real are they with their own experiences, and how open are they, or is it a lot of just kind of presentation and shiny kind of like stars and results and that kind of thing?
Yeah, and I think as people do like more education and they get more into like studying and exploring different paths, I think another component that's kind of missing is just the critical thinking part. Like I think you find that a lot of people will study different kinds of systems, and then they just kind of accept the entire system as being like an authoritative figure, just because they happen to have some kind of like accreditation. But I would say, I think it's important for people to kind of even better understand like what it is they're actually learning, what it is they're being taught, and then find a unique way in how it actually applies to them. I think you've done a great job. I mean, particularly I've never met Wim Hof, but I think there's people that would maybe if their first interaction with the Wim Hof method was Wim Hof himself versus their first interaction with the Wim Hof method was with someone like yourself. I've only seen videos of Wim Hof, but I feel like you guys present the material in a very different way. He's very outgoing and to say the least, but he's definitely a very interesting character, and I think he presents things in a very interesting way. And obviously he's like the embodiment of proof of like how well it can work. But I definitely also think to some extent like you can even just like look at him and be like, oh my God, this guy looks like he's off his blocks, amazing respect for him. But I think also too it's like even like with the linguistical semantics of Eastern philosophy, you can just change the language a little bit, make it a more appealing to a Westerner, and then you just basically have a greater ability of communication or influence with a greater audience. Do you find that you change the way you instruct and the way you coach depending on who the audience is? Like, you change language or anything?
No, and consciously not. Like, all I can do is be 100% authentically myself.
Yeah.
And I almost say at the beginning of every workshop, it's like, look, if you don't get into this method today because you don't resonate with me, cool beans. But there's plenty of other instructors out there, and it doesn't mean that the method's not working for you. You're just not vibing with who I am, and that's okay.
Mm.
Like, I get really easily triggered when I hear kind of spiritual language, and then that will mean that I can't access that workshop if people are kind of sat there at the beginning. We have to hold hands and whisper our intentions, or sort of like, you know, demonstrate what spirit animal we are today, or, you know, like, and this is, you know, friends of mine that kind of lead the workshops like that, and all power to them, you know. But I'm just going to check out immediately because who am I? You know, like, my background is like a cynical city boy that was far too cynical, and you know, just like that's why he got sick, and but there's that part of him still sort of protects him from what he would judge as being kind of airy fairy nonsense, you know. That's not to say that language means that, but I'm trying to be a bridge between these two worlds by just being like kind of real and saying, not using that language consciously, although kind of basically saying the same thing sometimes. You know, it's got to be somewhere in between. That's a fine balance, and I'm doing my best, you know. But it means that I'm going to attract people from kind of both fields that kind of like hopefully see something real and grounded. That's what I'm trying for.
Yeah.
I'm not going to reach people that are like 100% science and want to go into the neuroscience of this method or anything else. That's boring to me, you know. And yet, like, the people on the other side of it, they're just purely sat in the kind of physical realm of energetics and talking language, like, oh yeah, the energy in the room is really affecting me. It's like, what do you mean? How do you actually fucking feel?
Yeah.
Tell me how you feel. Like, come on, like, that's bypassing to me. So there's got to be somewhere in the middle, and I attract a very specific client because of that, and it's always a version of me. You see what I mean? Like, that's kind of like resonates because they're like, I get this guy, and you know, I'm not the hero of the story in terms of coaching. I'm the Yoda, so to speak. I'm the guide. You know what I mean? I'm the guy that's like, well, I've been here, and like, here's how to find your version of whatever you're trying to do.
I think that's important for people to kind of to understand with regards to like what are coaches actually supposed to do, you know, like, are they supposed to give you like a full like plan, like literally from like A to Z, and every single, you're supposed to do these steps exactly, no matter who you are, and not, but I think this idea that we actually are like, we're helping. I mean, we may provide like a guide. I mean, you want to go into any situation with a plan to some extent, but have the ability to make changes or make adjustments and adapt to situations that may come up, or, you know, as you go through the process of self-exploration and learning about yourself more, that there might be things that come up that you didn't actually even know about. So I think, that ability to adapt is incredibly important.
I mean, transformational work, you know, it's such a bold expression, but we're figuring out where we want to go in life and who we are and what's holding us back and what can help us move forward. And that doesn't involve being the same person that we are 2-3 months down the line.
Right.
And so, you know, there's a bunch of tools and exercises out there, but how you grow and what comes up, you're right. It's like, I don't know. I'm going to find out. I can't, like, I've got a pretty good idea from when I start working with someone through like a good interview and onboarding process, what's likely to come up. But, you know, there's someone that's like, okay, I want to figure out, change my career and find my purpose. It's like, cool, okay. And then it ended up being that they actually just came to a point where they accepted who they were and they were so happy with how their life actually was that the whole career thing was like, oh, can we just ditch this bit? I just want to take a break and just enjoy what I've got now. It feels amazing, because they'd let go of a part of themselves that didn't feel like they were enough. You know, I couldn't have predicted that, although that's kind of ideally what I want for everyone, to be like, well, this is great as it is, and if it isn't, then okay, what steps can we take from here?
Yeah, I mean, I think even like, let's say through this, you know, last 45 minutes of talking, you know, people might assume that we're just kind of always on this like process of becoming better and like actively, you know, learning new materials and actively trying to apply it and just going this constant. They could say like, this is a very exhausting process, and I would probably assume that you're not doing this 100% all the time. Where do you find your time to maybe take a break from your own process, or what are some of your vices, or what do you do to just like, do you just, whatever, anybody ever see you just sitting back on the beach drinking a beer with a little umbrella or something like that, or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, what are we here to do in life if not appreciate what is around us? You know, not being attached to these things and needing beer or pizza or wine or just, you know, some of my favorite things. Actually, not anymore, to be fair. But to be able to sometimes say, yeah, I do want to have that actually, and I'm conscious why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But the ability to let go and the ability to just go, all right, today I'm not going to plan a thing. I'm just going to see how I feel. I'm just going to kick back. I mean, one of my favorite things to do is like every new year now I'm going to sort of go and take this week off and just be on my own in this little hut in the middle of the forest. That sounds kind of weird to some people, but oh man, to just check out like that for a bit. And it's not about process. It's just about like, oh, just going to be out in nature and like, because I'm super clear on what is good for me and what I actually enjoy out of life, and it's always the simplest things possible.
Yeah.
You know, and so if people don't have the ability to walk away in any given moment, okay, we have kids, I get, you know, let's not be extreme with that, those
Probably
kind of
not
responsibilities,
yeah.
right? Just drop them off at the supermarket, they'll be fine in an hour. No, like, but just to go, okay, you know what, I'm stressed to my eyeballs and I've got all of this stuff I need to do to finish by the end of the day. It's like,
right.
you know, like, what kind of life is that?
Yeah.
You know, like, can you not just dump this for a bit? And so I do that consciously. If I see that I've got out of balance in that way, yeah, I'll go for a walk down the beach. Yeah, I'll go for a surf.
Yeah.
You know, and if I can't do the things that I really enjoy in life, then what's the point? What's the point of self-development and growth?
Yeah.
If I can't stop and just go, oh, here I am.
Yeah. I mean, it tends to, I think for most people, you know, the simplest things are the things that we tend to find the most enjoyment in, you know. I mean, I remember, so many times when I was younger, I was like a massive like shopaholic, and I would just you know, I wanted to get like a new phone and get a new bag and get new shoes, and like I'd be happy for like 2 days, and then it just becomes a thing. Like it just falls into the normal realm of everything else that I have, you know. And you get this like $1,000 new iPhone and you're like super excited for like a week, and then it loses its luster quite fast. Where I do, you know, find the most I guess happiness is being able to share like experiences with people, and yeah, even the simple things of I mean like we're here in Bali, and you know, if you're not able to take some time to even go out and like see the sunset or just enjoy nature in Ubud, you know, like at the end of the day is like what is the real purpose of what we're doing, you know. You don't really find too many people like on their deathbed like wishing that they had bought something like a car or whatever, like, you know. I think
yeah, I mean, that's the greatest lesson of all when you listen to people on their deathbed is like, what were their biggest regrets? What are the things that they really wanted? I mean, it's easily Googleable.
Googleable. Yeah.
And just read that and be like, oh, okay. You know, it's like, it's an edge practice to kind of, you know, just sit with death for a moment and just talk to, like, you know, your grandparents and stuff, and not that they have to be that old, but just like, what have they got to teach me? You know, like, what am I doing this for? And it comes back to this idea of those two mountains that I mentioned earlier. Like, the first mountain, we all have to go up it, and it's like, yeah, I had a period when I had a bunch of money. I bought some great clothes, and I looked great, you know, and that was important. At one point, I thought I looked great, you know. Yeah, sure enough, you get to the top of that mountain, and then it's like, all right, and then you start to walk down again. You're like, well, this isn't satisfying me. So you walk up the second mountain, and as you pointed out, like, how do I tie into the lives of other people? How can I share what I've kind of learned and got with other people? How can I be of service to other people? And that's my big sort of message. Like, if you're interested, then you need to start thinking about this idea, because otherwise we're still on the first mountain. And if you're young and you're sort of questioning like your life's purpose and whatnot, stop it. Go out and have fun and get drunk and buy the things, and, you know, and get to that point where you're like, oh, actually I'm really done with this. I don't need to go partying out every night. I don't need that anymore. But you need to come to that conclusion yourself rather than me or someone else tell you and go like, you know, no. Like, you need to come to that place yourself.
For sure, I think like individuals need to take an active role in their own development. You know, like you can give someone the most like perfect plan to become the best version of themselves, but I mean, if they're not going to do any of it, then what's the point of the plan? You know.
I've had that, and I should have known when I took people on. One guy in particular, you know, my bad, my responsibility. Here's what he thought he wanted, and here was the path.
Yeah.
Couldn't face it. Wasn't ready to do it. And it's like, okay, all right, you know, later.
I think this is also brings up an interesting point with regards to like coaches, you know, even, you know, even as much as like we would, you know, provide like tips or suggestions on how like clients should decide on like what coaches they want, but I think coaches too also have to have the ability to properly decide whether or not their clients are actually in a place where they're willing to do what's being asked of them. Sometimes, you know, they might be doing things for the really like wrong reason, and then they don't get the results that they want, and then, you know, everybody kind of fails in that scenario. Yeah, I think that's the interview process can be quite difficult.
Yeah, and in the beginning we're all kind of yes people because we want business, we want growth, and we want to take people on. But you know, ideally, we get to a stage where it's like, okay, well, and I had to say it. It's like, look, I'm not sure I'm the right coach for you.
Yeah.
You know, like I love you coming to me, but I don't think I can help you with where you're at. You know, like those are my shortcomings. You know, or I'm not sure really to dive into what we're talking about based on the fact that you haven't listened to a word I've said.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's okay. It's like, you know, that's all good. Like,
Yeah.
Off you go, or off I go, and then, you know, that's kind of safer and better, and there's just a bit more integrity there as well, right? Like,
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, have you had similar stuff where people have come to the gym and they've had certain ideas about what they wanted, and then they just don't show up, or like?
I mean, I think the culture and the environment that we kind of build at the gym kind of helps, you know, with people's expectations. I think when people, you know, we have people do a trial class, or, you know, they come with a friend and they get to experience like what they need to really experience what the class is about, because it's really hard to kind of describe or to really, you know, for people to really understand like what it means to be coached. Right, because especially in the fitness industry with classes and stuff, it tends to be just purely like, all right, everybody, like we're gonna do this 10 different exercises. Just you got 1 hour, just do as much as you can, and then there's like no corrective feedback or no adjustments being made or anything like that. So there's definitely when they hear a group class, that's what they think of, right? They think of like, oh, they're just gonna tell me how to do all these exercises, and I'm just gonna do them by myself and not get any feedback. So I think there is sometimes when I think it's a hard place to be at, because we're actually actively trying to help people identify where they're weak, and people generally don't like to have their weak points pointed out to them. So it's something, yeah, for sure. I think, you know, setting the customer's mindset from the beginning is that, like, you know, we're going to make, you know, suggestions based off of weaknesses that we see in your movement, but that everything is coming, like, what is the intention of what we're doing, right? So everything is ideally coming from a very positive point of view, and then like we're actively trying to help you get better, and we want you to take an active role in that process. Because yeah, I mean, if you just went up to somebody and if you just like randomly went up to somebody in the street and just said, wow, you're really overweight, I mean, most people would be like take massive offense to that. But yeah, if you're in the environment of, let's say, a gym, you have your coaches who are there supposed to be experts or specialists, and it's already like said from the beginning that, you know, we're there to try to help you with your performance, and that we're not really so much focused on just the pure aesthetics, you know, part of it. You know, aesthetics just appearance, but if we're actually there to help you with your health, right, and we're actually looking, you know, after your best interests, right, then you can even make theoretically like worse statements. You know, if you take it out of the context of the situation, it could sound worse, but because of the context, because of what we're actually trying to accomplish, then I guess people are more willing to accept the advice.
They trust you, hopefully, and they're paying for you to help them. And it's like, powerful coaching is about saying something to someone that no one else is willing to say, and, you know, not from a place of trying to hurt you. It's like, this is real, and like, can I give you some honest reflection here? Like, I don't believe you, or like, I don't buy that, or like, you know what, I think it's coming from this place instead of that place, and the truth hurts, but it's like, well, yeah, okay, and it's like, that's how we then show up as clients. You know, I have a coach too, of course, and wow, yeah, you're right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And just being willing to sort of dive into that journey, because we're all invested in each other's growth, and you know.
But I think also too, there's another aspect to this idea of like it is kind of funny that people have to pay, not that they have to pay for a coach, but they essentially have to pay for somebody to tell them the truth. But I think another interesting point about that with regards to truth is that you don't, I would say, like if it was like someone, maybe one of my coworkers, and maybe they did tell me the truth about something, but I would, depending on the situation, I would probably be thinking also about like what is the alternative, the ulterior motive behind telling me this, right? Are they actually trying to help me, or are they telling me something because they are going to get something else out of it? And I think maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I do feel like there's a lot of people that are always like, they don't actually believe that people would just genuinely be wanting to help another individual, like just be nice and just actually want to help them. They would always, a lot of the times, maybe not always, but a lot of times it's just assume that they're doing it for some particular reason, I think that's maybe the culture of like sales, right? It's just the only reason why you would do something is so that later you can get something else back from it.
I mean, we live in an exchange culture, and it's like that sales conversation, that's essentially what a discovery call is, I'm like, but when it comes genuinely from a place of not lack and I want this money, but like, I think I can help you, and this is how much it's going to cost, this is the investment, because this is what I'm investing, this is my time as well,
right.
And like, then it becomes easier, but it's around trust and truth, and so then that's where that relationship becomes really locked in together. It's like I've shared, you understand, like I understand what you're saying to me, and I believe I can help you, and you trust in that. But yeah, like as a coach and as a client, it's like it's always an awkward conversation, especially where money is. I get it. It's that's the most interesting part of the conversation. Like, well, this is the investment. And like, because it always brings up something deeper. Money always brings up something deeper for people, and then that's where we can really go to town. And it doesn't mean a yes at the end of it. I say to everyone, like, no matter what the context, it's like, I'm not here to convince you to do anything. I'm here to help you understand the choices you've made.
Yeah.
Whether that's a clear yes or a clear no, great. Yeah. But just that's in between areas a bit weird.
I think that's probably a good place to be at with, like as far as a coach, if they needed a place to start of how to decide whether or not certain clients or individuals are willing to actually put in the time and the effort to go through with the program is, ideally you just present what it is that you do, and as opposed to like selling what you do, and then let them decide whether or not they're actually ready to do it. But I completely understand the idea of like sales. I did a little bit of like cold calling and selling like telecommunication lines and stuff like that. And
it doesn't feel good, right?
No. Did you ever have, what was like your worst job?
My worst job?
Yeah. Did you ever have like a job that you were just like, you would not want to go back to?
It's a classic sort of answer of turning it upside down, but doing a paper round in kind of some of the worst kind of spots and throughout winter for 4 years, most days of the week, working in McDonald's, like as a teenager with dreadlocks and having to put them in a little bun, and just kind of learning what it's like to work in places like that, and Woolworths and whatnot, and just kind of understanding that's not me, and understanding kind of why I didn't belong there as well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they were great jobs. I think the worst thing I've ever done was like temporary work, like working in a factory when I was just coming out of school, just sat literally on a sort of factory line, and bits of plastic were sort of coming off, and you had to kind of break the bits off, and that goes in the bin, that goes there, and you clock in and out. Back when we had to do that with actual paper and stuff. God, I sound old. But again, the learning from that as a teenager was like, this, and oh my God, there is a man in his 40s, 50s that's been doing this his entire life, and that's his life, and look at him, no thank you. So like, I always take the positives out of this.
Yeah, definitely. I worked also one time in a factory at at Frito-Lay, which is like they make Doritos and all that, Cheetos and all that stuff. And so, I mean, I just like 8 hours a day just picking up bags of chips and put them into a box. And like that was like my job, just like pick up bags, put in a box, pick up bags, put in a box. And the way they changed the monotony of the job was that like one line would be like 99-cent Doritos, and then the next line would be like family size pack like potato chips. And so then every hour they would just ring a bell, and everybody would just change lines to the next line. So they would just change up the kinds of chips that you were that you were packing. But it was like jobs like these though, like at the time, you know, like it was decent money, and you know, I'm just, you know, relatively, you know, still young at that point, and I think, but they're definitely formative, you know, like these are jobs that like, man, I would never want to go back to, but now, you know, they make me like highly appreciate like where I'm at now for sure. But I think it's definitely, I think it's important for youngins to do some hard labor, yeah.
Oh man, I mean, like,
not saying that we should have like child slavery or anything, but
yeah, I wouldn't also recommend bringing back national service, but I would definitely like to see a return of like, and they still have it in some countries where you have to take care of old folk for a period, you know, and like, not just like a couple of days, but you have to spend time with some old folk and just learn that kind of respect and kind of understanding of what they've got through life, and do it in a kind of curated way so that, you know, there are certain interactions that you can have and you can learn from them. I mean, as little kids, you know, or teenagers, there's only so much we're probably going to take from that, but I know that, I forget which country it is, somewhere in Northern Europe obviously, like, still did that, and there was just something different. They had a different relationship to their community around them.
Yeah.
And I think that's super valuable. And also just to point out, like, you know, that dude that was doing the factory work his whole life, you know, maybe he was happy. Maybe that's his purpose. Maybe because of what's going on in his life around him, that job suits him down to the ground. You know, it's not like this is shitty work. It's like, that's not going to do it for me. But maybe he's a painter or something, you know, and this is how he makes it. I don't know. But not to kind of judge and say, well, no, thank you, there's something wrong with you, but like, that's not for me.
Yeah. I think that goes into, you know, separating like, just because something is, well, it's the idea of like, you know, one man's garbage is another man's riches, right? Or I'm sure it's something along those lines. But yeah, who knows? Like maybe that, you know, job was much better than a job that he did when he was young, right? And he was like, doing something much worse. Who knows? Yeah, or I mean, maybe it was some people just want something that's very secure and stable, and I mean, if it's something that's going to allow you to not have to worry about where your funds are coming from. Like, I think that's one thing that, you know, us being here in Bali is like how like crazy would some people go with like not even like just being here alone, but then not knowing like what to do with their, you know, life with regards to like how to make a living and such. Being an entrepreneur to any extent can be quite frightening.
Yeah, I mean, you know, some of the kind of articles that have come across my way recently, and you know, I'm loath to believe anything I read on Facebook these days. But from what I've also been hearing from people I've met as well, it's like we come here with this idea of entrepreneurialism and growth and whatnot, but are we all actually successful with it? And I'm not sure a lot of people are. I think there's a lot of people struggling to make ends meet, especially living in this environment where it is a giant playground. You know? And so that's the flip side of it. You know, it's like, what are you focusing on? What are your core needs, and which ones? Ideally, we're going to have them all met, but that's not realistic. And so, which ones are you not meeting? And so, people's drive for growth and contribution and connections, all well and good, but like, are they underpinned with like, you know, solid kind of ritual or routine throughout the day? Like, are you earning enough money, you know, so that you do have these options? And, you know, do you have insurance and all these kind of things? It's like, it's all about balance.
Yeah, balance is a tough one for sure. What is there anything that you're any big transitions you're going through in life now? Maybe with your practice or with your coaching or anything?
Massively. I mean, I was kind of struggling a little bit being here in Bali, and kind of, it just felt like a little bit of isolation, and I was sort of looking into why and where, and I guess that's another story. But what was clear for me was that this isn't where I want to be anymore. What I crave in terms of those core needs is this idea of sort of something a bit more stable. And so then I realized it was time to move back to what I call the real world. Next year I'm going to be operating in teaching lots of my workshops and courses in China, which is super exciting. We've got a great sort of partnership going on there with a really cool organization.
Okay.
I'll be based here a little bit, doing hopefully like retreats and whatnot. But like moving back to Amsterdam is the plan actually. It's really close to Hamburg, where I was living for 10 years, and that just feels really solid for me. And so the transition of preparing to kind of actually move a lot of this stuff online. Because look, my coaching's online, but the whole thing, so you got all of the sort of smaller workshops and courses, so it's all online, and having to do that technical side of things, that's a huge transition, which a lot of us still have to do this kind of thing on our own, so I'm figuring a lot of that out. But also the transition from putting my own curriculum out there, so it's a really solid thing that everyone can actually see and understand, because for a long time it's like, oh, is that the Wim Hof guy? Yeah, I do that, and it's amazing, but there's also this whole other program of like how we can live life and grow. So learning to kind of put all that together and out there in a cohesive, understandable form is what I'm doing right now, and it feels great. But yeah, that's colossal transition, knowing that I'm moving sort of back, but to a new city and doing that. So yeah, it's I guess what I want to say is like, transitions what I help other people with, and this is one of the times like I'm so clear with what I'm doing and where I'm going that everything becomes doable. There's none of that kind of like when we're in movement, we're not sure where we're going, and like some of the pillars are like sort of stability and finance and love, and they're not really solid, then it's really challenging. And I think that's what a lot of digital nomads suffer from. They move from one place to the next, sometimes to enjoy, but also to look for connection. And until we have some form of stability at some point, then I think we're going to run into trouble after the initial buzz, however long that lasts. Yeah. And so for me, that's just feeling really, really solid.
I think too, so going back to the idea that sometimes, people look at what professional athletes do or what professionals do in their realm, and they see that final product and that's what they want to do, but not actually seeing the hard work that was put in the transition phase, or all the prep work that was done. So like even if you just like look at Bali and Instagram, and you look at all the so-called like amazing lives that people are living here, you don't always know what kind of life people are actually really living, and like what's your actual purpose for wanting to be here in the first place. I think for me too, like even just being here for 2 years, though it's quite a big island, like I can completely understand like how it can be. You can even get like cabin fever to some extent, like just being here all the time. You see the same people all the time, and you're kind of going through the same processes over and over. But I suppose you just have to kind of figure out like your real reasons as to why you want to do something. And ideally at some point you kind of figure it out. Hopefully you're not 80 and then you figure out like, oh wow, I've been doing something for 60 years and I didn't enjoy any part of the process.
That classic question of the thing that you're doing, would you still be doing it if you were doing it for free? And the answer unequivocally for me is yes. I get so much joy out of it. It's I get to be who I am, and that serves other people. And it doesn't mean like everyone has to go out and try and be a coach or something in something. Like there's enough of us around. But finding out what it is that you love doing, and in some way being able to help other people in something, and teach something. It doesn't have to be your full-time job. But in some way like give something of yourself. You're not making something up, just giving something of who you are and what you've been through, and then sharing that with other people, as you said, super rewarding. And then like balancing it all out, got the money, what is it that you want in life? And I was thinking earlier about just how much money do I want and need, and to me it's like enough for me to continue living this lifestyle. I want a couple of properties, and I don't mean like kind of vast mansions, like I don't need that. I'm really clear on what I want, and it's just to be around nature and to have a couple of places like that, and then to be able to continue to do this work. And I think you know, we've come a long way since like these yogis that have absolutely nothing and yet are super content, and we can't even relate to that idea, and we're still looking at a lot of the people in the self-development industry as like, well, they've got a book out, they've got this, they're successful, they've got lots of money, let's take them seriously.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like this whole like life experience and money not being a priority. That's still kind of something that we don't take very seriously, and that's a weird one for me. But I'll attract who I'm meant to attract, just like you will, and so be it.
Yeah, ideally, yeah. I think, I mean, for us generally, I mean, even everything that's happening in Nirvana Strength, for, you know, I'm always open to tell people that, you know, everything that's happening at the gym, even doing this podcast, like all the events that we do, for me, it's a very selfish endeavor. Like it's everything is like, I want to do it because I really enjoy every aspect of it. You know, I love talking with, you know, high level practitioners, just like yourself. And I think these conversations, you know, help me with my own development. And hopefully the idea is that everything that we do, and, you know, I want to be able to share it, and the people that ideally, that listen or participate in the gym or focus on their health and wellness, that, you know, they'll benefit from the stuff just as much or even more than what I benefit from doing it. So the intention is to give some people some path to finding better versions of themselves, and, you know, ideally, and I'm very much against the you know, creating a system that's very dogmatic. You know, I'm very welcoming of coaches from all different backgrounds, because I definitely believe that, and this is quite an interesting topic that's happening at the gym tonight, but there's a dinner discussion where the topic is dogma is the death of mastery. Which I think was, I mean, Michael Van, who's doing the talk, he came up with that topic, and I was like, wow, that's a really cool topic. And I do find that sometimes in certain areas of life, people are almost, they want to be like the sole source of information, and so they don't want like their students, they want the whole like sensei kind of relationship where they're like, I'm your master, you don't have any other masters, and you can't learn from anybody else. But yeah, I think taking the best of everything is only going to help you get better. But I think that goes back to, like, you know, the critical thinking process, and actually figuring out like what parts of different arenas of study would actually benefit you the most as an individual. So,
but also, like, I mean, again, the flip side of that is to sort of get very knowledgeable about one thing before you then reach out and start, you know, reaching for something else. Like, and so I can offer my idea of what is, you know, it's going to help people on their path, because I've tried out a bunch of different things, and I'm fairly well educated on those things. Not, you know, they're not a million things, and for a good reason, you know. And like the problem with dogma is like adhering to tradition is one thing, you know. It's like, well, this is the way to do this, and I respect that. But it's when it becomes like, well, this is the only way, then we've got a problem, because there's so much out there.
Yeah. And
so again, it's all about a balance of going, well, look, this is what I've learned a fair amount of. But then I found that we can at some point sort of like cherry pick, you know, like to provide something new for then people to resonate with it or not. I mean, there's a word I'm missing here, but that's kind of, I think that's a healthy thing, definitely.
Yeah, but I think as individuals, you know, as people, like, there is a certain amount of individualism that we want. You know, we don't want to just be carbon copies of you know, our masters, or carbon copies of other people. And to be able to find something that's uniquely yours is to, you know, incorporate other disciplines that might not necessarily have been, you know, thought of, in your particular specialty. Yeah, so quite interesting process for sure. But I think, I mean, for both of us, I'm quite interested to, you know, hear how you're going to progress and how you're going to transition in your life. And I'm sure, you know, let's say you go to China and Europe and come back to Bali in a couple of years, you'll be an even more progressed individual, which I think is,
Let's hope so.
Yeah. So if anybody wanted to contact you with regards to coaching or learn a little bit more about what you're doing, where could they best find you?
My Facebook and Instagram is Rich, R-I-C-H, Realign, one word. And re-align.co is my website. So it's all kind of growing, developing, but these are two good places to check me out, get a sense of what I offer.
Okay, awesome. And we'll definitely include all that into the caption and links and stuff below.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you again for coming and listening to the Practitioners Panel podcast. It was a fantastic discussion with Rich, and we look forward to having you join us in the next discussion. Stay tuned and help. What do I want to say? Continue your path to your journey to your nirvana. I think that's a good one.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, take it easy, guys.